Hello, folks. Here's a new idea I've been thinking about for quite some time now. I wanted to create a new segment dedicated to individual case files of national park missing person cases that I find quite interesting and intriguing due to the circumstances of how they disappeared. I think you just might find them as interesting as well as I did. And many of the individual cases I'll be discussing have already been covered briefly in previous videos. Well, at least now I can comb through all the evidence and in more depth and detail, and spend a little more time addressing them. So in this first segment, I'd like to kick things off by talking about one of the more well-known disappearances out there. And that involves a 14-year-old girl named Stacey Arras who disappeared on a horseback riding trip inside Yosemite National Park in July of 1981. I chose to look into this case due to the lack of evidence following her disappearance, despite all the resources and manpower that was thrown into the search. On July 25th of 1981, the 14-year-old girl from Saratoga participated on a horseback riding trip with her father, George Arras, and 7 others in the Sunrise Meadows area of Yosemite National Park in California. A few hours into the trek, they arrived at some cabins located at Sunrise High Sierra Camp, approximately 3 miles southeast of Tenaya Lake and about 1.5 miles from Sunrise Lake. The group decided to drop anchor, rest up, and had planned to spend the night there. I was unable to find out if any others were staying there before the group had arrived, but maybe you can fill us in with that missing info. Now, Sunrise Camp is just shy of 10,000 feet in elevation, and it's the last camp on the 50-mile high Sierra Camp Loop. And after that, it's all wilderness. Within the camp, there are 9 cabins, which accommodate up to 35 guests, and it overlooks the meadow facing Mount Florence and Mount Clark in the distance. Well, not long after the group arrived, Stacey and a few others went on a brief hike just a short distance away from the cabins, and that's where the story begins. According to sources, and I'll list them in the description of the video, Stacey cleaned up, showered, and changed clothes. An older member of the group, Gerald Stewart, an older man in his 70s, was sitting on a boulder about 100 feet away from the cabins. Stacey told her father she would go for a walk close to where Gerald was sitting to stretch her legs after the horse ride, and to take some pictures of the views. She asked her father if he wanted to go with her, but he told her he'd pass on the occasion. The last conversation she had with her dad was related to her footwear, where she was advised to change from her flip-flops to hiking boots before she set off, which she eventually did. At this point, she was wearing a white pullover windbreaker, white jersey blouse, leggings, gray hiking boots, and also had metal braces on her teeth. The group watched as Stacey walked over to where Gerald was sitting and joined him for a moment before setting off with her camera. She told Gerald that she was going to take a walk to a nearby lake or body of water, though it was unclear which body of water she was referring to exactly. This was either a few hundred yards to a largely flooded lower portion of Long Meadow, or the longer walk to Sunrise Lakes, about 1.5 miles away. She planned to take some more pictures of the lake, and he offered to accompany her, but before she left, Gerald felt tired and decided to hunker down for a while. They all watched as Stacey went on a little further toward the lake, go behind some trees, and eventually disappear out of sight. That was the last time she was ever seen. After a while, when Stacey didn't return, though it is unclear how long, Gerald became concerned and returned back towards the cabin area and gathered the group for a search. After an initial search of a couple hours, the group then contacted park officials to report her missing. Gerald told park officials that he had spoken to a group of people coming down from the direction that Stacey had taken, but they had not seen the girl. So about this group of people, I was unable to find any information about how many were in the group and where they came from exactly. So almost immediately after she disappeared, a large search involving up to 150 people, including park rangers, Mountain Rescue Association personnel, horseback riders, and sniffer dogs were deployed over 10 days, concentrating on the 3 to 5 square mile area around Sunrise Lakes. 3 helicopters also participated in the search, with the park's own contract chopper in the air for over 40 hours. Despite the efforts of the search and rescue teams, the only thing ever found was a lens cap from Stacey's camera, just inside the tree line from where she walked into the area by the lake. Again, it doesn't give the precise location of this lake, or even how far it was from the camp. So after those 10 days, the official search exhausted all their funding and resources, and it was then left to a handful of volunteers to keep it going. After their search ended, the case ran cold, and no new evidence has come forth. So when you comb through all the news articles and reports, they're all pretty much saying the same things. Most of the folks who were involved in the case are no longer around, so we have very limited information to go on. And that unfortunately opens up the doors to all kinds of conspiracies. But I just wanted to take a moment to discuss the possibilities of what may have happened to Stacey. Well, we know that she carried a camera and had braces on her teeth. So if her body was found, it would be much easier to identify her. We also know that search dogs were deployed covering a 3 to 5 square mile area, but hadn't detected any scent of her. If she was attacked by a wild animal, there's a high probability it would have been confirmed by those search dogs. According to some sources, the closest body of water was at the lower portion of Long Meadow, which is clearly visible from the campsites. The next body of water is at Sunrise Lake, which is not visible from the camp, and is located approximately 1.5 miles away. And then after that, you have the Tenaya Lakes at 3 miles away. Now if she disappeared behind a tree line beyond that first body of water, it's possible she may have been heading out to Sunrise Lakes. What I want to know is were those lakes searched? Some speculate that she was more interested in photographing the water than some of the other natural features in the area. Now let's switch gears a bit. What if she ran across another hiker or hikers along the way to her destination? We can't rule out that any foul play was involved. Yosemite National Park has seen its fair share of incidences and disappearances, going as far back as when the park first opened in the late 1800s. It's quite possible she could have been taken even further into those woods and held just outside of the search zone. But if she was abducted, it's likely the search dogs would have tracked her scent to the point of the event. I'd like to know where those search dogs ended up going, and how far did they make it before they gave up? Were they able to follow any leads? Did those leads point in any specific direction that might have any significance? Was there some old logging or access roads in the area that we don't know about? Could she have left or been taken on any of them? I say left because let's assume for one moment that she left on her own accord. On July 28th of that same year, just a few days after she vanished, the Fresno Bee, a newspaper in Central California, released an article stating that Stacey was having some family issues at home and at school. It was also noted that she had a boyfriend, but it didn't say what kind of issues they were having. Was she dealing with alcohol or drugs? Was she suffering from depression or any other illnesses? Was she having suicidal thoughts? Well, for a 14-year-old girl, she appeared quite normal to those who knew her and gave no indication that she would have left on her own accord or run away with her boyfriend. But if she was intending to disappear, why did she originally leave the camp in inappropriate footwear before her father intervened? Why weren't the search dogs able to trace her scent? I think the chance of her running away was little to zero based on what we have. So if we rule out all the above, what's left? I think that's why this case is one of the strangest national park disappearances out there. It's possible there's some key element or piece of information that we're not getting. There's a whole lot of unanswered questions, and it's unfortunate that we may never know what happened to that poor girl. But I haven't given up hope that there may yet still be some closure for the remaining family in time. Perhaps the answer is still up there in that meadow or at those lakes. I'm going to leave this open for discussion, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on this case. If I'm missing any information, please let us know below. Thanks for joining me on this first case, and may we never forget the sad and strange disappearance of Stacey Arras.